Hello, Lottie Dottie, and everybody. Welcome to another episode of Suds Cafe with your host, Tarina Ali, where conversations bubble over into your soul. I'm always excited to just have conversations with people. I believe, as my theme is, conversations to bubble over into your soul, because who doesn't need a good, positive, uplifting conversation, especially in this world when it could be gloomy, dark, and when we have rough patches. And I have an amazing guest. And I use the word amazing because I believe everyone that comes across this podcast is amazing in their own rights. And so, without further ado, we have Christopher Tynes on the podcast with us. How you doing, Chris?
Hey, Tarina, how are you?
I'm doing good. So, can you introduce yourself to the audience? Who is Christopher Tynes?
Oh, man, Christopher Tynes. I am a native of Virginia, Tidewater area to be specific, Hampton, Norfolk, Newport News area, Virginia Beach. Um, I'm a father of three.
Mm,
They range from 17 to
cool.
9.
Okay.
So they'll all be in double digits this year, which is
Oh,
very interesting. Um, Realtor.
mm-hmm,
Real estate professional. Let me say that I do appraisals and I'm a
mm-hmm.
salesperson. Um, man, I've done a little bit of everything. I pride myself on knowing a little bit about a lot.
Yeah.
I've hosted podcasts. I've had clothing
Cool.
brands. I've
Cool.
co-owned music
Nice.
studios.
Mm,
I mean, you name it,
that's good.
And my 17-year-old has kind of walked with me through
Mm-hmm,
all of my ventures.
mm-hmm,
Um,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think
That's
I'll stop
cool.
there. I can
And
kind
that's
of
good. I believe that we only get one life on this side, right? So why not do different things, right? I don't believe we're born to be monolithic to do just one thing. And so we can be, have our hands in different things. I think that's just the beauty of being a human being and using our gifts in the earth. So I learned some new things about you, about your multiple ventures. So that's great. Keep at it. I definitely say keep at it. And I was just always just prayerful about topics that we're going to discuss. And I try to bring up things that I think just could be relatable and applicable just in a real life everyday setting. And just being very honest, the last couple of weeks, my mom has passed and it was 4 years, actually May 13th. And normally I'm good. But for whatever reason, this go around, it was a little heavier, right? And so she transitioned after Mother's Day. And so it's always after Mother's Day, I'm going to have that experience, right? And so, but it was just heavy this go around. And so life that happens sometimes, right? We have to learn how to navigate the bitter and the sweet, right? And I believe that we should find things to help us in our rough patches. And so that's what I wanted to talk about today is that life is going to have highs and lows, curves. Life is not linear at all, and we go along for a very good ride at times when we have rough patches. And so I would just make the assumption that you have had your own experiences with a couple of rough patches in life. Would I be correct in that assessment?
absolutely.
Right. And I don't believe any human has not. And I say it doesn't matter your degree, it doesn't matter your economic status, it don't matter your zip code. You all are going to have rough patches. Let me say we all are. And so, withstanding that, Chris, what have you found helpful? Would you say some strategies to maintain a level of positivity in a rough patch? And I'm going to raise my first hand to say I have not always been positive when I had rough patches. Let the church say amen. I just haven't. I actually was having a conversation with my 20, I have a 22-year-old and a 15, almost 16-year-old. And I was having a conversation with him, and he was gently reminding me of some things that transpired that he had to experience. between me and his dad when we weren't as mature as we needed to be. That's just the honesty of it. And I wasn't always positive. And so, withstanding that, how do you maintain some level of positivity? How do you try, let me say that, when you have to face a difficult spot in life?
So let me start with this. I am the baby of four,
Mm-hmm.
right? My siblings, they're old enough to be my parents,
Mine's are too.
right?
Mine's are too.
So for me, in just being where I'm positioned
Mm-hmm.
in my familial infrastructure, um, I've been able to kind of watch them
Mm-hmm.
fall short and,
Mm-hmm.
make subpar decisions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that has really been extremely beneficial to me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and not to say that I haven't made mistakes, because I've made some huge ones.
Mm-hmm.
But to answer your question is like, what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
It's really just believing in me more than I believe in anything. It's understanding that there's going to be peaks and valleys and, ebbs and flows, as you like to say,
Mm-hmm.
right? Ebbs and flows, but it's if I don't believe in me, if
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that, if I can't envision myself coming out on the other
Mm-hmm.
side, if I can't imagine myself being triumphant
Mm-hmm.
on the other side, then who will?
Mm-hmm.
So I think that mindset would really be the answer for me as to how I continue to see myself through some some
Mm-hmm.
dark times.
I love how you said coming out on the other side. Because a lot of times people, let me say this, they don't feel that they're going to come out on the other side. In lieu of course, we're not talking about death, right? We're talking about just life, period. That there is a other side to it. There's just the rough terrain. Same way you're on a ship or a boat and or even an airplane, there's rough terrain or rough air pockets. At some point, it's going to smooth out, but can you withstand those rough patches and see and have the mindset that you said that there's something on the other side? And my siblings also, primarily, I'm number five of six, so they were all, pretty much older than me, old enough to be my parents. But same with me, I saw a lot of things that they did that just wasn't. And I've tried my best, probably to a default, being very honest, to be totally opposite of what I saw. But in our humanity, we're not going to always get it right, right? We just not, and it is. I think you just have to put it into practice. I think mindset definitely is key. That's part of the process, of course, to be able to maneuver through the rough patches. But I think some like practicality things have to happen also in real time. And so in lieu of your mindset, but in real time, like having that mindset, but how does that look walking that out, right? So for example, say for example, if a conversation begins to get, I say, a little heated, right? Because we all gonna see things differently. How does Christopher in those spaces attempt to navigate some of that?
It varies.
Mm-hmm.
Varies. It really, I mean, because no day is the same and
Mm-hmm.
your mindset isn't the same every day either.
Yeah.
So I would be remiss if sometimes I probably do some of the unhealthy things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I may jump off the hinges. Now,
Mm-hmm.
jumping off the hinges is subjective,
Right. Right.
right? So I'm not
Right.
climbing walls and breaking things.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it
Right.
doesn't look like that. But
Right.
for me, it's knowing that I don't have the ability to speak right now. So
Mm,
either walking away
that's
or
good.
telling whomever the other person is, listen, I just don't have the bandwidth to
Mm-hmm.
give you what you're looking for right now, or give me a couple days.
Mm-hmm.
Let me afford myself an opportunity to kind of walk away, decompress, kind of recalibrate,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then come back to it. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes in that, I have a change of heart. Sometimes I don't even want to further the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? Based on my assessment, like I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't even make sense. I understand who I am, and I also understand the personality of the person on the other side.
Mm.
And if I don't feel like it can be a healthy
Yeah.
conversation or communicative
Yeah.
conversation, then I'm not even about to play with you or me.
Hmm. It's an old song, Kenny Rogers. He's like, know when to hold them and know when to fold them. Like that is so ideal because sometimes, even though we're maybe faced with just with some rough situations, whether some we cause ourselves, or of course by other people, right? You have to know those internal cues for you to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, we can revisit this, but some stuff, it's like, you know what? It's no need to even go further past keyword bandwidth to do it right. Like you got to know that. And I think sometimes people, I think, should really ponder and pause, right? And just really reflect because sometimes you aren't in the space to have the bandwidth because you're already in, make for example, a rough patch or something is going on. You just don't have the wherewithal to do it. But I think the mistake that sometimes people can make is not listening to their internal cues of self and not honing in on when you don't have the bandwidth and you continuing down a path that maybe you should pivot from or even stop hard press to say, you know what, right? Not
Right.
letting pride or ego get in that way, right? It's there's something that says that, do you want to be, some people are just so hell bent on just being right, like
Yeah, really.
yeah, yeah,
I mean, I heard this saying before that was like, as it pertains to a storm, there's only three places that you can be. You're either it's either coming,
yeah,
you're in it, or you're on the other side, which is what you spoke
facts,
to.
facts,
So, if I feel like a storm is going to be a result of a conversation or, something that I'm really uninterested in dealing with, there's a high probability that I'm gonna probably just break up with you. You know, I mean, this isn't speaking to companionship, but
right, right,
just
yeah,
relationships in general.
mm-hmm,
If I don't feel like there's an opportunity to, I mean, and that's right then. I've had situations in relationships that I've walked away from,
yeah,
and now a couple years later, a couple months later, we've revisited and had
yeah,
a very,
yeah,
adult like,
mm-hmm,
conversation.
mm-hmm,
And it was almost as if we went right back
yeah,
to where we were.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No trust issues, no, but all relationships aren't created equally.
mm-mm,
And neither are the
mm-mm.
personalities attached to them.
Very much so. And sometimes there is what I call that period of time out that may be needed. It may come back to make the relationship flourish even better, right? It may be some maturity that happened along the way. It's a number of things that can happen. And yet again, I think we just have to have the emotional maturity to allow certain things and own our own part, in certain situations and being self-aware. And I think that sometimes I've seen it so much where I don't think people have the level of self-awareness that they need for certain situations. And so we're talking about when rough patches happen and basically how we are maneuvering through those. But how can you share, if anything, whatever you're comfortable with, where you really had a rough patch to happen, and in the midst of it, you were just so bogged down, like by it, and to think about like the other side was just hard to get to.
Mhm.
You've had any experiences as such?
I have, I
Mhm,
have, um, I mean, in a very, very major and distinctive situation.
mhm,
Um, so I'm gonna give you a little backstory first. So I
mhm.
go into college expecting, um,
Okay.
I'm a father,
Mhm,
about to be a dad.
mhm,
I pull up to school in August. By March, my daughter's here.
mhm,
But I chose to go to school 6 hours away from home.
mhm,
So in getting to school, you're trying to figure it out. Like, not only am I trying to figure myself out, but I'm also extremely nervous. Like, I got this baby on the way.
mhm,
So we get to that point, and I started doing things on campus. I had work study going on, a little bit of illegal activity going
mhm,
on too, just
mhm,
transparently. It's my
mhm,
story. Um, but nothing that was affecting anyone per se, right? Just kind of like extra.
Mm-hmm.
I got a kid I got to provide for. I'm 6 hours away. I need to be able to make it make sense. And Target and Waffle House and FedEx wasn't, it just wasn't going to get it done,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know. If anything, I felt like it was going to be more of an issue because they
Mm-hmm.
needed my time.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't give them time to to make a living and be able to travel and go love on her and so on. So fast forward, I get through college. I'm in my senior year. Um, I've interned, I've had stipend-based internships. I've gotten a few work study checks. I'm also throwing parties at this point. So
Mm-hmm.
once again, my motivation has shifted the years prior because I've always been trying to make something happen, always trying to create some cash flow. So I graduate college in December of 2009 and January 5th of 2010, I get a knock on the door
Mm-hmm.
and it is the letter boys, you know, um, you know, FBI,
Mm-hmm.
whomever. I'm not really sure who
Mm-hmm.
they were, but I was asked about some fraudulent activity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I wasn't aware of the fraudulent activity, but based on where I was in North Carolina, um, everything is based off of convictions.
Mm-hmm.
So like when these elected officials, sheriffs, whomever, and because I didn't have any answers, I was pretty much drugged through the justice system. Now, backtrack a little. I had just taken the LSAT,
Mm-hmm.
just graduated from undergrad, double major,
Wow.
criminal
Wow.
justice and political science. I got accepted into William and Mary, University of Houston, and Tulsa
Mm-hmm.
on my way to law school. I hadn't decided yet, or I hadn't made it public yet. I was going to Houston though. So now I'm in a space where now I have a criminal offense that I'm actually
Mm-hmm.
fighting that was like unbeknownst to me. And I don't even
Mm-hmm.
know who to tell on because I'm telling. If I knew who to tell on, I'm telling.
But how about that? Listen, listen, right.
You know what I mean? Just call it what it is, right?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know culturally and in our community,
Mm-hmm.
it's you snitching and
No.
da, 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 da. No, this is about to affect my life. I just told you I had
Yep.
a kid,
Mm-hmm.
right? So just going through that process and it was tough. It was
Mm-hmm.
rough. It cost me and my family about $50,000. These were 8 felonies that I was facing.
Wow, wow.
I walked away still taking charges. I walked
Mm-hmm.
away with misdemeanors. This is in 2012 at this point. They gave me a year probation. Um, did a year probation, uh, paid my little fines, did my community service, great, but I still got this blemish on my background.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm a criminology, criminal justice major.
Yeah,
So what field am I going into with this blemish?
yeah.
It's fraud. So I decided to leave. I left North Carolina. I went back home to my safe haven, went back home to mom.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the people know me like my foundation. They know my family,
Mm-hmm.
they know my stock. And I pledged in college,
Mm-hmm.
Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity, and just so happened that the sheriffs of my hometown and the sister city, Hampton and Newport News, were both my fraternity brothers.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
So I walk in. I didn't know that. I was directed to them. I walk into their offices just kind of on a, I think you need to know them. Not even
Mm-hmm.
knowing that they're my fraternity brothers. This is the crazy part.
Mm-hmm.
So I walk in with a resume. I'm clean. Granted, I got this blemish, but I know I got the education and the skill
Mm-hmm.
set too.
Mm-hmm.
And I have this conversation, and Sheriff Gabe Morgan, shout out to him. He's like, "You ever heard of reentry?"
Mm-hmm.
This is when reentry is
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
the big thing, right?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, like they didn't teach me that. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that wasn't in the curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
Of course I know recidivism, I know all of that, but like I don't know about a transitional period,
Yeah.
from incarceration back into the community. So he's like, well, listen, I'm trying to get this program off the ground, and I feel like you landed in my lap. What
Mm,
better individual than someone who has the education,
mm-hmm.
has done these internships, has this skill set, but has also seen it
Yeah,
on the other side?
yeah, yeah.
I think that you would be a great fit. And he gave me a job on the spot. I didn't interview, I didn't fill out an application, I didn't
Wow,
do
wow.
anything. I didn't know this man,
Mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm,
know. So from there, I literally curated a reentry council, what I call a reentry council, where this is
mm-hmm,
just community stakeholders and nonprofit organizations,
mm-hmm,
grassroots organizations that are
mm-hmm,
offering services. So
mm-hmm,
trying to get the transitional citizen reconnected. So it was all
mm-hmm.
relationship based and relationship
Yeah,
based.
yeah.
So I did that for about 2.5 years. I was getting paid nothing. I mean, pennies,
Mm-hmm.
but it was an opportunity. It was a resume builder.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so from there, did that, loved that, built some amazing relationships, and within about this is 2017 at this point, so 5 years later, legislation changed in North Carolina to where any non-violent
Mm-hmm.
misdemeanor can be expunged.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what literally changed the trajectory of my professional career
Yeah.
and just my life in general. As I told, I'm a real estate professional. They do background checks in
Mm-hmm.
that space too. You can't have
Mm-hmm.
blemishes on your background trying to
Yeah,
jump
yeah,
into any space, really.
yeah.
Um, but I feel like I manifested it all. Like
Mm-hmm.
I never not believed in
Mm-hmm.
myself.
That's great.
Um, what I didn't tell you was I went to trade school in high school and became a electrician.
Mm,
So
okay.
in this stagnant time, I'm slinging pipe and pulling wire.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I'm dirty, steel toe boots
Mm-hmm.
with a whole degree,
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like I'm above, but like I
Mm-hmm.
can't be complacent. I got a mouth to feed. I got somebody to.
Yes, yes.
So yeah, that was a very hard time. It took about a decade to come out on the other end of that,
Mhm.
and now I'm a federal law enforcement officer.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. And I just believe that somebody listening is something beneficial and helpful to them. Just the story itself, but the resiliency, the perseverance, you connecting with family support, going back, getting your support. Because I think that sometimes that when we do have rough patches in life, people try to do things in isolation for whatever reason, right? Not feeling like they want to be a burden to somebody, or ego gets in the way, saying, I'm gonna do this on my own. But we need the support of other people. I definitely believe that, especially when you go through rough patches, right? You never know what experiences that someone has already had that can kind of help you navigate through that process, or what resources that they do have, right? And I think it's just so important, even during rough patches or situations, to still be open. And that's what I heard you say, that you still were open and positive in your trajectory for the future. So even if it came from, hey, I have this child that I need to look after, right? There are a whole bunch of people who have, children or whatever, but they still don't have the mindset to say, hey, I'm still going to push forward. So kudos to you, and your support system and all the things that you said, you're not going to let this situation dictate to your future. And it worked out in your favor, because, we know, criminal justice system, we're both working in it, and we know how the impact that it can have. We know how the impact that it have on, returning citizens and all the things. And so I'm glad you were able to navigate, and something you said, it was some years. I think you said 10-year span or what have you. And sometimes I think in the middle of rough season of patches, we don't know how long that process is going to be, right? And people tend to give up, and or it's like, we want this to be over fast. I get it, right? Because it doesn't feel good in the midst of when we're in it. But I try my best to say, okay, if I'm in this situation, what can I glean from this because I'm in it? It has to be something that I need to pick up along the way. And the words that come for me are like resiliency, because you're going to need that in life. Like you just, I was having a conversation with my son, and he's growing and maturing into being a man. And there's but so much I could do as mom. Like, of course, be me and mom. If I could take away every problem he would have in the world and circumvent, I definitely would. But I can't do that, right? And so he has to have his level. We have to have our own level of resiliency. And I believe the truth is that we get that going through hard patches. Like I just really believe that that's just how you get it. I mean, I don't really see it. Yeah, you could get it other ways, but when you the rubber meets the road, I feel like, and when you're in the thick of things, it's
Yeah.
like either you're gonna sink or swim kind of thing.
Yeah. See,
Yeah.
so I treat life and relationships
Mm-hmm.
like a GPA,
Mm-hmm.
right? You know, when you walk into school that first
Mm-hmm.
day, you got a 4.0.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And the moment you start slipping up, or the
Yeah.
moment you drop a
Right.
ball, or the
Mm-hmm.
moment something is jaded or tainted, then that
Mm-hmm.
begins to slip. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't get back
Right. Exactly.
to where you were, but it's so
Yeah.
much easier to slip than it is to
Mm-hmm.
get back.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm very much analogy driven, so I try to
Mm-hmm.
make things as simple as possible. Um, so that's my focus. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, man, I had a 4.3,
Yeah.
you know, and life, we talked about ebbs and flows. Like you're gonna
Mm-hmm.
have those moments where your life is operating like a well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
You feel like
Mm-hmm.
you just can't lose right now.
Yeah. Your
You
winning
talking
season.
basketball, the
Yes.
goal is this big,
Yes. Yeah.
right? But then you got sometimes you find yourself when you might need a little WD-40 and it's a little rusty over there.
Yes.
You might need a little bit
Yes.
of maintenance.
Yes.
So it can be fixed. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
a cure,
Mm-hmm.
but like can you get there? Can you make
Yeah.
it make sense in your head? Because that's where it starts. And
I
then you
agree.
begin to implement
Yeah.
whatever those changes are. And even in your implementation does not mean that you're gonna get it right the first time. You gotta adjust and be agile.
Yeah. And definitely the agility piece of when you was talking about you had your degree, however, you were doing something different, the electrical things, right? And I think we have to be palatable because sometimes you may have to do something that necessarily you did not necessarily plan out to do, or you may have envisioned to do it. And you have to be palatable. And yet again, putting your hands to work and whatever that you need to do. We're talking about hopefully on the positive side of that, right? To make it sure that you can do the things that you need to do until you can get to where you want to go, right? Because a lot of times I think sometimes people want this automatic jump from A to Z. Like you want you want it now. Like I want to be at Z already. You want
Yeah.
to be the MVP. You want to win the Super Bowl already without you not thinking about you need to go to practice, you need to be in the gym, you need, a certain diet, you need all the things that you need to do to get to that kind of level, right? And it's just the building those, I think, experiences, those difficult experiences can definitely help with your personal growth and new perspectives if you remain open. Because Chris, honestly, me, you, and anybody else, and there are people are, we could have easily turned cynical based off of hard experiences, right? And tough patches. I've seen it. I'm sure you've seen it, right? Where you just so dismal, you're just to the point of where I don't want to continue, or just not have a positive outlook on the way that you want to continue in the earth, right? And so as we wrapping up, because time goes by so fast, but how did you not become cynical through these hard spots?
That is a great question. Um, that I don't even know that I have
Mhm.
an answer to.
That's
Transparently. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
Mhm.
I think that that's when it becomes more foundational, just kind of like
Mm,
where.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you come from? What are your
That's
roots?
what, yes, I was about to say that.
What do you know?
Yeah.
I have a very giving, I come from a very giving mom. My
Mm-hmm.
mom drove city buses for 40 years.
Mm-hmm.
And in that time frame, she has taken in five, six strangers into our home. That she now granted, strangers to me as a child,
Mm-hmm.
she's seeing them every day.
Mm-hmm.
She's nurturing, a relationship every day. She's having the conversation every day.
Mm-hmm.
So just understanding that there are people out there like her are
Yeah.
that are going to be willing to assist in
Mm-hmm.
some way, form, or fashion. It's really up
Yeah.
to you to try to make those connections. And you how can you network if you're not putting yourself out in the network?
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that just once again, mindset, knowing that, okay, well, this is where I am and this is where I want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I would prefer a overnight
Yeah.
change, right? I
Yes.
would love that. But it also has contributed, those situations have contributed to my parenting
Mm-hmm.
style and communication
Mm-hmm.
too. So my 17-year-old, we talk a lot about ideal versus reality,
That's good.
you
That's
know?
good.
So ideally, I wouldn't have been in this situation and I would have went on to law school and but just based on the story that was already written for me, it was supposed to happen. So if I
Mm-hmm.
have a mindset that, oh well, this was supposed to happen because now I'm dealing with defendants and
Mm-hmm.
overheards and my
Yeah.
ability to communicate and meet with them or meet them
Mm-hmm.
where they are is
Mm-hmm.
different than a lot of my peers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been here. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
us that work in this space, we just went to school, we got our degree, we did
Mm-hmm.
our internship, we
Mm-hmm.
applied for the job, and we're here. We don't have a lot of real understanding
Mm-hmm.
of what that looks like on the other
Mm-hmm.
side. So I think that that mindset has really and like I say that those foundational nuances have kept me grounded enough to not become a menace.
Mm. That's good, Chris. And as we were talking about the support, and support looks different from everybody, right? You shared that you had your family support, right? Some people don't necessarily have blood family support, which is fine, right? But you talked about even networking, getting in the community. You shared your example of one of your fraternity brothers who was telling you about a program. He hired you on the spot, right? Because you showed up in the space, right? And opportunities came. And I think that is just so key of that. We have to work on our attitude. We have to work on our mindset. If you have those foundational principles that were instilled from you, whether it was a family member, whether it was a fraternity brother, somebody somewhere, a teacher somewhere, glean from those people, from those positive things so that you can put those in your tank. You know what I mean? Because you're going
Yeah,
to need that. Like, you're going to need that because it's easy. Like, I wholeheartedly believe we're all one decision away from making a wrong decision.
yeah,
Like, it's, there, I don't ever look at myself like, yeah, I have these skills, I have great foundation, but on any day, if I decide to lose my mind and go to the left, it's possible, right? It's all decision, it's all choices. And so, thank you for just bringing this just real life, honest conversation about just life and rough patches when it happened, because we see so much in this social media age, I believe, where people just showing you the highlight reels of their life. They're showing you now they got a $6 billion company or whatever it is, right? But unless you come from, even if you have money, you still gonna have hard days in life. I don't
oh, for
care where you
sure.
are. I say from the crack house to the White House,
Yeah,
like everybody gonna have some rough patches in life. And I just think it's so important to develop those support systems for when you do go through that, someone you can go to, someone you can be honest with, someone you can be transparent with. And as you shared in your instance, you've been on that side, and no, everybody won't have the exact same experiences, but we will have some experiences to be able to help somebody else. And I pray that people don't be embarrassed about their struggles, because I've seen that just as well in this space, that they don't want to share, that they maybe been incarcerated or whatever it may be, and they've been, divorced or had kids they weren't married. No matter what it is, no judgment, from me at all, but use those things, I would say, to your benefit. And so any final words that you would say for someone who may be listening, who is currently in a rough patch and they are feeling a way about it, like what were some words that you could kind of encourage them in that space as we're ending?
Well, in pledging, I take this little poem with
Mm-hmm.
me every day, and it's called the Seven P's,
Mm-hmm.
and it reads that proper prior preparation prevents a piss poor performance.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so as long as you properly prepare, which looks different for everyone,
Mm-hmm.
right? And sometimes that preparation is just knowing what it is that you want it to look like,
Mm-hmm.
right? Manifesting what it is that you want it to look like. If you properly prepare, then there's no way for you to perform poorly.
Mm-hmm.
So take the crooked with the straight
Mm-hmm.
and live life.
Yeah.
Grandma always said, all you gotta do is live.
That keep living. That's it.
Keep living.
Keep living. That is it. Thank you, Chris. I really enjoyed the conversation. Thank you for taking time out of your day. I don't take that for granted that people avail their time to you. So thank you for coming on Suds Cafe. I really appreciate it. And to all of our listeners globally, all over. I'm grateful to have people listen from all the various countries, and I'm really happy about it. Stay tuned for the next episode of Suds Cafe, where conversations bubble over into your soul. See you next time.